So the new academic year is just around the corner, and given that I've just graduated from my second degree, I thought that this is the perfect opportunity to share some of the things that I wish I did sooner to improve my experience at university. Starting with number one, go to lectures. It's very easy to underestimate the importance of attending lectures, and especially now that a lot of lectures are recorded, it's very easy to just think that you can watch the lecture content later on or at a later date start reading the lecture content. But lectures offer a lot more than just content. Forgetting that they offer you a structure to a largely unstructured lifestyle that you have as a student, they offer you a really important opportunity to be able to engage with lecturers and, more importantly, pick up on subtle and nuanced points that lecturers will talk about in the lectures that you don't get through watching the lectures later on or through reading the lecture notes. We can think of this by looking at lectures as a level system. Level 1 is the most basic level. It's the stuff that you've just got to do in order to get through university. So this is reading the lecture notes, looking at the lecture slides, for example. Now, sure, you could pass pretty much any module by doing this because for the most part, all modules and all exams are based on the content that is theoretically taught, but those lecture notes are often complicated. The slides don't include all of the information. So a lot of the time, this won't actually give you a very full understanding, and the type of student who does this sort of studying isn't going to be successful. Level 2 requires a little bit more effort than level 1. It means that you have to go to lectures or at least watch the lectures back if they're recorded. Sure, you'll get a lot more information and you'll probably be able to pick up a lot more of the nuance from doing this, but the chances are there's going to be issues with it and you're going to miss key bits of information. And that's where we need to move on to level 3. Level 3 requires that you go to the lectures, and not only that you go to the lectures, but that you are present in the lectures. This involves interacting with lecturers. So if you've got a question, ask the question. And I know what some of you may be thinking, that's going to be embarrassing if I ask a silly question. And although everybody says there's no such thing as silly questions, the thing to remember is even if it is a stupid question, you're paying for this degree. So you're paying for the knowledge that that lecturer is giving you. So if the lecturer is teaching something that you're not picking up, it is your responsibility to learn that material. The responsibility is passed on to the student to learn that material, which requires a lot of self-study, sure, but it can also be supplemented by actually engaging with the lecturer and getting your money's worth of actually asking the lecturer questions that you have. Looking back at my early years of university, one of the things I really wish I did a lot more of was to engage in the lectures and ask questions when I had them. It saves a lot of time and a lot of stress later on when I didn't understand a specific topic, where I knew that if I just asked that question in the first place, I would have had my answer straight away. My second suggestion is to prioritize sleep. Now, there are two groups of activities, generally speaking, at university that can cause you to lose sleep. You've got academic activities and social activities. Now, let's start with the social activities, because I'm not going to sit here and pretend that partying doesn't happen late at night or going to clubs and bars isn't something that students do, because it is, and it's something that I did, and actually it's something really important that I did because I met a lot of friends through doing that. It can almost be taken as a fact that if you're going out clubbing or partying late at night, that you're not going to be getting the best sleep. You're probably going to be missing out on a lot of sleep. And it's not the healthiest thing, but it is also important for socializing, for example, and it's a key part of the university experience for most people. So I don't want to sit here and try and lecture you not to go on nights out, because I really enjoyed those. I thought it was an important part of my university experience and something that most people going into university seem to enjoy. Now, obviously this comes with a balance, because you want to be prioritizing your academics above everything, because that's what you're there to do. You're there to study, you're there to get a degree, but you're also there to make friends and to socialize and to have a life. So it all comes with a balance, and I'm not going to suggest that you prioritize your sleep over going on nights out with friends, but I'm also not going to say go on nights out with your friends all the time and sacrifice your sleep and sacrifice your academics. But where I do wish I prioritized a lot more of my sleep was with academics. In my first few years of university, I used to do quite a few late night study sessions or even all-nighters. And late study sessions are one of these things which is really weird in that they feel really good to do. They feel productive. You feel like you're actually achieving something. But in actuality, like the objective reality of all-nighters is that they're really not good for your academic performance. Sleep is a crucial factor for consolidating memories and for cognitive function. So if you're missing out on sleep, you're missing out on those abilities. And the other thing to remember about sleep and all-nighters, late-night study sessions is that you're never actually really gaining any extra study time because you end up paying for it in the days that follow. The third thing that I really wish I did a lot more of, especially in my early years of university, was to join as many societies and clubs as I could. Now, I've come to find that there are generally 3 benefits to joining a large amount of societies, or at least trying as many societies as you can. The first is that you get to do things that you enjoy, things that you're good at, things that you're curious about with other like-minded people who also share the same interests as you. So you meet new friends and you get to meet people who are similar to you. The second is that you get to explore new hobbies, new activities, new sports that you didn't even know existed in some cases. This is something that I really wish I did a lot more of at university, especially in my first few years. When I started uni, I joined the rugby team because I'd played rugby pretty much my whole life and it was the sport that I enjoyed, it was the sport I was decent at. But I wish I joined other sports, or at least tried them out, because looking back, that would have been a great opportunity to see if I was more interested in other sports. And this also applies for hobbies as well. I mean, there are plenty of societies at pretty much all universities that go into the weirdest and most nuanced and niche interests and hobbies and activities that there are. And the third benefit that I found that comes from exploring these new societies is career advancements, because there are plenty of societies that are dedicated to advancing careers, and you can find these specific to all sorts of industries. So you'll have course-specific societies that just focus on content within courses, interest in things that are happening in the world of that particular field. But you also have entrepreneurship societies or business societies or reading societies, stuff that allows you to upskill yourself and get ahead of the game when it comes to applying for jobs later on. So there's so many benefits to trying out the societies at university, from building a network of friends to exploring new hobbies to going deeper into interests you already had. One of the biggest lessons that I learned at university is that talent means absolutely nothing. And the more you go through university, the less it matters. What matters more is hard work, your persistence, and your ability to study. Now, this is something I explore a little bit more in my video on the habits of the most successful students. But what this means is that throughout school, you're very likely to be able to cruise through and get decent, even if not great grades by doing very little work if you have the talent or the natural understanding. But what I've noticed is that as you get to university, that discrepancy almost vanishes, and what matters a lot more is your ability to study and put in hard work consistently. Now, I've seen people on courses that I was on who were naturally talented completely flunk out of the module because they didn't put the work in. And on the opposite side of that coin, I've seen people who had no talent, or they would even admit that they had no talent, nail courses because they figured out how to study effectively and they found out how to work hard consistently. Now, there's not too much I can say about this because it's a pretty simple point. It's just that you have to study hard and you have to know how to study. So build good study habits, work consistently over a long period of time, and work in a healthy manner that allows you to maintain that consistency. The next point is something that I didn't really figure out until my master's degree, which was 3 years after I started university, which is to treat university as if it's a job. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, first of all, you're not getting paid for the most part to go to university, so it's not really like a job. But what I'm trying to imply here is that you should focus on sticking to a very strict schedule about when you show up to university. And showing up means showing up and doing the work. Now, in a job, for the most part, you're contractually obliged to work from set hours in the morning to set hours in the afternoon, whether that's 9 to 5 or whatever it is. So usually 40 hours a week. So the important thing is that you have a similar schedule for studying. You set out your study contract, if you will, of when you're going to work each day. So first of all, set out how many hours per week you want to study and make that an absolute bare minimum. So that could be 40 hours a week, which is a standard work week. But then the important thing that I found is to set core hours during the day. So let's look at an example. You could set your core hours as 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday to Friday. And no matter what happens, you have to work in those hours. You have to study in those hours. So this gives you the core hours that you have to work, Monday to Friday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. for example. But that's only 30 hours, so how do you make up the rest? Well, you have the flexibility to assign different amounts to different days to make up the extra 10 hours. So for example, you could work more on a Monday and Tuesday and then less towards the end of the week. Now obviously this is just an example. You can change the total amount of hours you want to study, you can change the days you want to study, you can change the core hours, you can change however you want, it's your study schedule. But most universities recommend that you spend about 35 to 40 hours a week on studying, and if you're going to do that, why not set it up in a way that allows you to stick to a consistent schedule? Now there are a lot of benefits that come with using this method. The first is that it gives you a level of self-discipline over your time that is very hard to achieve during university because of the flexibility and the freedom that university gives you over your time. So having the ability to control that and be responsible over your time is a very important skill that will be useful past university for years to come. The second benefit of this is that keeping to a strict schedule means that you have a lot less mental overhead when trying to plan out when you're going to study. If you've got a very strict and consistent schedule, you know at any given point, at every given day, when you're going to study. The final main benefit that I found that came from this is that it frees up so much time later on in the afternoons, in the evenings, and on the weekends for you to socialize and do whatever you want. If you start this method early on in the academic year and you keep on top of your work, then you've got plenty of time throughout the academic year to be able to spend socializing with friends in the afternoon after you've done all of your studying for the day. Now before I get into the last two things, let me just go through a few quick fire points that I didn't want to turn into full sections in this video. First, get fit. It's good for your mental health, it's good for your physical health. You look good, you make friends in the process, and you feel good from doing it. Number two, be yourself. Don't try and fit into other people's expectations of you, whether that's your friends, your family, your parents, strangers. Just be yourself. Number three, be critical of what you're being taught, both in lectures and from the people around you. Learn to form your own ideas of the world. Number four, go to office hours. Lecturers put them there to help you, and you're paying for university, so use all of the resources you can to help yourself. All right, enough of the quick ones. Let's go back to the main points. Learn how to budget. Now, university is this weird thing where for the first time in most people's lives, you get a lump sum of money through a student loan. Usually they're paid in installments, so you get a decent chunk of money and then you don't get nothing for a long period of time, and then you get the next chunk. Now that chunk of money has got to last you maybe 3 or 4 months for rent, for food, for bills, for activities with your friends, social activities, and you've got to learn how to budget that money. And it's a weird thing because you get this massive responsibility over money and probably not much financial education on how to actually manage that money. So it's on you, your responsibility, to learn how to budget. Now, I've seen people who haven't learned how to budget during university and still can't budget even though they've got well-paying jobs. And so you see people with well-paying jobs in really bad financial situations because they never taught themselves how to budget. Now, it's very hard to say how you should budget because it's a unique thing for each individual, but for the most part, it comes down to tracking your expenses, tracking your incoming money, and making sure that you're in a positive balance at the end, so you're spending less than you earn. And remember that a good budget not only helps you live within your means, but teaches you financial discipline that lasts long after you leave university. The final point is to manage your time. Time management skills are something that is so important at university and something that I really struggled with early on because university gives you so much freedom over your time without really the skills on how to actually manage it. So it's very important that you learn those skills quickly and effectively. There's a quote that I heard recently that I think summarizes this perfectly, which is, your calendar should reflect your goals and not your commitments. It's so easy to fill your calendar with lectures and social activities and meetings and events, but are those things really pushing you in the direction of your goals? Are you making enough time to study effectively, or meet friends, or work on long-term projects, or exercise, or even just rest? All of these things will be important in some aspects to everybody, but each individual will place a different level of importance on each one depending on their personal circumstances. The important thing to consider, and something that I really had to work on during my first few years of university, is to make sure that I wasn't just being busy, but that I was being productive. I talk about this a lot more in my study skills video, but the important thing is to utilize tools that allow you to plan your time effectively and in a way that pushes you towards your goals rather than away from them. Thanks for sticking to the end of this video. I hope you found it useful, and if you are starting university in the new academic year, then good luck. I hope you have a great time, and I really hope that some of these points are able to make the university experience that little bit more enjoyable for you.